position 2 representative for Legislative District 32. And Representative Kagi got the draw on this one, so she will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for an introductory statement.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. I'm Ruth Kagi. I have been in the legislature for 12 years. I chair the Early Learning and Children's Services Committee, so most of my time and effort is focused on children and our foster care system and early learning. I have worked very hard in the arena of children's issues to reform our system, to make sure that we are investing in programs that are effective and that are good investments. I sponsored and passed a bill last year that reforms our child welfare system. We'll be implementing performance-based contracts so that the community agencies that we already contract with will be held accountable for outcomes, and there'll be a consolidation of the 1,800 contracts the Children's Administration currently has. So I focus on what's effective and on reform. I have passed 2 major drug sentencing reform bills, which focused on getting nonviolent drug offenders treated in the community and held accountable for their crimes, but not sending them to prison. And that's resulted in a very significant decrease in the prison population and nonviolent drug offenders. I also think the state has a real role in overseeing critical functions like adult family homes. I supported a bill last year that would have increased fees on adult family homes so that we could regulate those homes. And I think the lack of passage of that is obviously a problem, so I hope we'll do that next year.
Hi, I'm Gagliardi. I'm not a politician. I'm just a guy that has a 30-year track record of extraordinary success in making large organizations more efficient and accountable. I got into this race because I want to revitalize our job market, I want to fix our schools, and I want to restore trust in government. My methods are simple. I believe in more community and less Olympia. Politicians will tell us that and you've heard it tonight, that we have to spend more in order to get our basic essential services. Well, we have spent more. In the last 10 years, we've increased our state spending and taxing 85%, twice the growth rate of the population, twice the growth rate of our inflation. And what do we have for it? Well, we have failing schools, we have backed up traffic, gridlock traffic, we have deteriorating social services, and we have the worst economy in 30 years. We know it costs this too. What happens when you put in more money and get less money out? It's because the money is going to build centralized power in a bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy really sucks. It sucks resources away from the productive parts of an organization. I know this because the largest organizations in the world for the last 30 years, first with my accounting firm and then with my training firm, bring me in to dismantle bureaucracies. In our state, that means moving resources out of Olympia into our communities where services are delivered. If you want more services and less Olympia, vote for Gagliardi. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as I mentioned, we keep getting lots and lots of questions about the budget. And in particular, one that has been asked is, since every January, representatives and senators take an oath to support the Constitution, and our state constitution specifically says that we shall amply fund education. And in a recent court case, Judge Ehrlich ruled that the state is not funding education, that the paramount duty is not being met. How do you plan to correct this? So, Mr. Gagliardi, you get to go first on this one.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I got in. Our education system is falling apart. We have a 30% dropout rate. We're creating the first generation of Washingtonians that are going to be less educated than their children and than their parents. And the reason isn't lack of spending. The reason is that we're not getting the money into the classroom. Only 59 cents of each dollar goes into the classroom. Only 47% of our educational employees are teachers. What's happening to all that money? Well, it's getting lost in the bureaucracy. We have to disassemble the bureaucracy that we have in Olympia to get educational dollars into our classrooms, because the only thing that really educates kids is teachers in classrooms. My background is in training people, and I know that you can do anything in terms of justifying bureaucracy in terms of growing it. And if you look at our schools today, we're doing everything but educating our kids. Our schools are getting worse and worse, and it's not because they're getting less and less money, it's because they're spending that money less well.
Thank you.
I couldn't differ more. We have the highest SAT scores in the country out of Washington State schools, and more students take the SAT than in any other state. We do have a horrendous dropout rate, and we need to address at-risk students and their needs. But the North Shore School District had very effective programs for keeping high-risk students in their class, and they had to cut them because of the reductions in funding. We did pass an education reform bill. We need to change the way we fund education. There was no transparency in our education finance system. We passed a bill this last session that will put $1 billion more into lowering class size and really focusing on the things that make a difference in the education of children. But to just lambaste the whole education system, I think is really inappropriate.
Thank you. Sort of a follow-up on that. The Seattle Times editorial calls the across-the-board cuts a failure of leadership with the governor, and asks, why didn't the legislature call a special session to address the budget? Also, there's a little follow-up question here. Why doesn't the governor take a salary cut? Which, of course, I'm not sure you can necessarily answer that question. Representative Kagi, you're first this time.
Well, 47 states are facing the kinds of deficits that Washington State is facing. This is a national economic downturn, and I think everyone's very aware that this is the worst economic climate we've faced since the Depression. And we have to, I think, look at it as a major economic incident that we have to get through and manage well. We cut $4 billion out of real services. I don't know where these figures about the budget growing. We have eliminated whole programs. I'm sure you're familiar with adult day services and other things that we have cut. We've cut a tremendous amount out of education, out of children's, out of all parts of state government. And the economy, the economic forecast was that we were at the bottom and we were going to start to come up, and that didn't happen. We have continued, our revenues have continued to be way below the forecast. And that is why we have across-the-board cuts. A special set, it took us 4 months.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
He's got the stop sign up. It's a tough moderator. What can I tell you?
Yeah, it's a target-rich environment here. We can start with things that were just said. The idea that we cut budget last year. Our state spending is up $4.2 billion. Heidi Munson pointed it out. The cuts are just cuts in what they wanted to spend, not cuts in actual spending. The fact that money is wasted throughout the system is well known. But the real way you solve this financial crisis is you bring prosperity back to the state. We get our money from doing business. We've driven businesses out of this state through overregulation and overtaxation. When you're seeing companies like Boeing leave, they're doing it for a reason. They're not stupid. What you don't see is companies like Amazon and Microsoft are expanding elsewhere, not here, because they can't do business here. What we've done is we've changed hiring employees from an asset to a liability. Nobody wants to expand their businesses here. Other states have set up partnerships for prosperity to attract businesses to our state. We need to do the same thing here. They are gaining jobs and gaining prosperity, and we are losing jobs to them. It's a more competitive world, and we have to compete.
Thank you. Okay, last question. I'm going to go back to one that we asked a little bit earlier. Do you see a need to make a change in our state's initiative process? And do you think paid signature collection is undermining our representative government? And feel free also to chime in on any of the initiatives that are currently on the ballot.
Yeah, we do have to make a change in our initiative system. Initiatives are a terrible way to govern, but they're necessary when our legislature refuses to act. In the last question they asked, well, why hasn't the legislature dealt with the budget crisis? It's simple. They have too many vested interests that they're protecting in the system, and that's where their interests lie. That's the people that support them financially. That's the people that get out and work to get them elected, and so they aren't in a position to cut that spending. In terms of initiatives, though, the biggest thing we need to reform is the fact when the people pass an initiative, the voters have to respect it. The fact is voters in this country, and in this state particularly, don't believe that the political class has any respect for them. They think of themselves as the ruling class. That's why we have the same initiatives on the ballot this year that we passed 2 years ago, because after 2 years, our legislature can just rewrite the initiative. So I say be very careful about things like a state income tax. 2 years, they can change that tax anybody they want, spend money any way they want.
Well, I come out of the League of Women Voters, and I believe strongly in the initiative process. But I do think that big money is driving a lot of these initiatives, and I am very sorry that the Supreme Court has ruled that we cannot ban paid signatures gathers. We actually tried that a few years ago. The Initiative 1107 to repeal the soda tax and candy and gum tax and other taxes is on the ballot. The American Beverages Association is going to spend $14 million on that initiative. They don't want 2 cents put onto a can of pop, and it expires in 2013. I think the voters really have to pay attention to how money is driving these initiatives and the special interests that are really undermining, I think, the public interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, the last thing we...
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm hungry.
Oh, excuse me.
So I think that was 3 questions.
That's right.
And so you are each entitled to a closing statement. And who went first on the opening? You did? Okay, so then Mr. Gagliardi, you go first on the closing.
And excuse me for jumping the gun there. By all means, let's make sure that nobody makes any money in this state. That would just be wrong. It's crazy. The fact is if the state is going to prosper, our businesses have to prosper. Our taxes can't put people out of business, or we all suffer. We don't have any jobs. We can't pay our taxes. Our services get cut like they're getting cut now. And people get up here and say, oh, we need more money, we need more money. Well, what happens is the state spends more and more money, and we get less and less for it. Why is that? Once more, it's because they're growing bureaucracy. My opponent has a lot of experience in bureaucracy. The fact is bureaucracy sucks resources out of the productive parts of an organization, and that's what's happening in this state. We've got to get the money and bureaucracy out of Olympia to our communities where it has more transparency, where it's better used, and that's the only way that we're going to be successful in reviving the state. Once more, we've got to revitalize the economy, and we've got to fix our schools, and we've got to restore trust in government.
Well, we do agree that we have to fund our schools, and we have to fund effective strategies in our schools. And I do think our education reform bill that we passed will move us forward with that. We face very, very tough choices this next year. We've already cut 3,700 state employees. We've already cut $4 billion out of the state budget in real expenditures, and I would like to sit down and have a conversation with my opponent about where he gets his figures and I get mine. I'm on the Ways and Means Committee and have been for 12 years, and these hurt real people, real cuts that hurt real people. I agree that we need to focus on the services in the community. I am doing that, working with the agencies on the 6% cuts that we're currently taking. We need to preserve the critically needed support for seniors, for children, for education, and take cuts where they will touch them as little as possible. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Okay, next we have the Senate race in Legislative District 32, Mr. Baker and Ms. Chase.